As a gamer, I've seen some of my favorite game franchises end up as a movie. In the last few decades, we have seen plenty of real stinkers, while others have become cult classics. I picked 10 of those must-see classics. Let's have a look. Every time a game developer announces an adaptation of their IP, I both get very excited and very worried. I think I should see a shrink about that. But in the end, that distress that I feel every time they announce something like that is kind of warranted. Because over the last few decades, there have been a lot of failed attempts at translating any gaming IP onto the silver screen, which is the theater screen because of its reflective nature. What? I'm just trying to but yeah, Fine. Anyways, in between all of those failed attempts, there are a few gems to be found. Movies that stood out because they managed to grasp the essence of said IP. Or movies that got to that cult status just because they were, well, let's just call it slightly over the top. Yeah.
Well, excuse me, princess.
I have 10 for you. All of them are movies. I'm going to keep this series for a next video because there's plenty to talk about right there. In other words, make sure to subscribe. The order in which I'm going to present these movies does not really represent a ranking. Although I'm going to keep one of my favorites for the later part of the video. However, we are starting out with something fairly recent. And with a bit of a confession on my part. The Sonic movies. I love those games. I used to play Sonic on my Mega Drive and on my Master System all the time. Come to think of it, it is quite insane that they made a movie out of that IP. Because at some point, well, it was kind of dead. They actually made 3 movies out of that IP. And I'm going to lob them all on one huge pile. Now, while the first movie was met with some reservations from the community because of an ill attempt trying to depict our favorite Hedgehog.
Meow?
The second and the third movie were highly anticipated. And that is because they are just fun movies, especially for a younger crowd, and thanks to the cast. Ben Schwartz, Idris Elba, Jim Carrey, and for the last one they even managed to cast Keanu Reeves. Come on. And this is where my confession is due. I have not seen the third movie yet. I've just been busy, it's been the holidays. But I really plan to see it on my next long flight, because that is where I get to see those movies. All those miles up in the air on an airplane. Well, that's where I got to see the first 2 Sonic movies. Another movie I got to see for the first time on an airplane was Detective Pikachu. I'm a little too old to be into Pokemon. I mean, yeah, I know, the whole IP is kind of set on the television series, but they made so many games that I'm going to just consider this a gaming IP at this point. And it is partly owned by Nintendo, so yeah, and I actually played quite a lot of those games. Actually, when I go abroad, I pick up Pokemon Go again for the, I don't know, millionth time. That is my go-to game when I'm traveling. I'm adding that movie to the list, mainly because of Ryan Reynolds. He's funny in that movie.
Magikarp can evolve into Gyarados. All it needs is a little kick. Water in the hole.
In my head, I saw that differently.
He tries to be funny in all of his movies, but it doesn't always pan out that way. I also like the way that they integrated those old Pokemon, the first gen Pokemon, into this movie. They looked cool. I mean, the plot wasn't revolutionary, but it was a fun movie. It does get outranked by the next movie on my list, however. The 2023 Super Mario Bros. Movie. I'm not even going to start explaining what Mario Bros. Meant for a lot of us. From my first Game & Watch, my Game Boy, to playing those games on Switch, and who knows, maybe soon, the Switch too. It might be announced right now. Yeah, it is supposed to be announced today. But that character has been a constant in my life. Now, however, when I heard that Chris Pratt was going to voice Mario, I was kind of worried. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great Star-Lord, but to play Mario, you need a little more, crazy? Is that a word? Yeah, maybe.
It's a me, Mario. Woohoo! Let's go. Okie dokie.
The original voice actor for Mario, Charles Martinet, I don't know if that is the way you pronounce his name, also voiced the character in the movie. but not Mario. Now, the reason why he didn't get to play Mario, most likely, these are just rumors, is because it kind of puts a strain on his voice if he does it for too long. And second, you know, that voice is great for a game and for some cutscenes in between, but you don't want to listen to that for 2 hours. So I get it. I get it. And Chris Pratt did a good job.
Mushroom Kingdom, here we come.
But the star of the movie was definitely Jack Black as Bowser. That Peaches song was on my TikTok feed for months on end. Good God. But all in all, a funny movie, nicely animated, and very entertaining. However, number 4 is going to be my favorite Mario movie into eternity. But yeah, maybe not for the right reasons. John Leguizamo, Bob Hoskins, Fiona Shaw, and Dennis Hopper in a movie made in the 90s about a video game that nobody understood. It was both weird and dark, something that the Mario games are not. But in a way, it was all we had back in the day. And it did bomb when it was released, because they just kind of missed the ball. But it bombed so hard that today, it is a cult classic. Because we just like looking back at that time and going, what were we thinking? But trust me, you need to give this movie a try. If you haven't seen it, just go watch it. Movies that did better at the time they were released are the Tomb Raider movies. Tomb Raider were the first games that I played on my first PlayStation. Well, once I was kind of done watching that T-Rex animation that was on the demo disc. But look, I was a young lad watching a pretty lady fighting bad guys and jumping on and off ledges. But trust me, I didn't like it for the reasons you think I liked it. Because we didn't have any physics and we barely had polygons back in the day. So it was all innocent. Kinda. The movies, on the other hand. Look, let's just say that Angelina Jolie definitely got our attention. And I haven't seen all of them up till now. There have been other people that played Tomb Raider. It's just, you can't have a list like this and not add the Tomb Raider movies. That would be insanity. And same goes for the next movie on my list. Well, movies. The Resident Evil movies. If we exclude all of the CGI movies, which are pretty good, there are no less than 7 live-action Resident Evil movies. Mia Jovovich featured in 6 of them. Yeah, she loved that IP. And just like in the games, every single movie got a little darker and a little more complicated to follow. But that is exactly why we love them. Those games are tied into some of the most fun all-nighters I did throughout my youth. And they left me with a scarring awareness of the fact that you need to be very frugal with your supplies, especially with bullets, which is extremely weird because I don't even own a gun. I'm European. Now, at the time that the Resident Evil games were released, I also had an other IP that I loved, actually a little more, and they made movies out of that too, but I'll come back to that in a minute. First, let me add the gaming franchise that made me pull the most all-nighters throughout my whole life, Warcraft. Well, World of Warcraft to be more exact. I spent more than 10 years of my life playing that game on an almost daily basis, and I am a Horde player. Of course I am, for the Horde. And to be completely honest, I had such high hopes when they announced that movie. And then at BlizzCon we got to see the first snippets. Oh god. Especially because of the director that was tied into it, Duncan Jones, the son of David Bowie. I guess you didn't know that. He was, and still is, a huge Warcraft fan. But sadly, he did not get to kind of work on his own vision. There was a lot of interference apparently. And trust me, interference from whatever corporate entity it is never a good thing in movies, or in anything actually. Now that all being said, overall I enjoyed the movie. As a player that had been playing those games for many, many years, it was a pleasure to see those characters on the silver screen. However, personally, I feel like they picked the wrong story to start out with. I know, that story that they told is pivotal, it's very important, it's the fundament of everything that is Warcraft. But for people that do not know the rest of the lore, it just felt very random. And there were way too many characters to keep in mind. It would have made a better prequel than it would have a first movie. For the first movie, I would have gone for the Arthas story, the Lich King story. However, it still deserves a spot on my list because they did a lot right. Now number 8 on my list is a completely different story. The 1995 Mortal Kombat movie. I personally love this movie. In my book, it is still the best Mortal Kombat movie they ever made. But a lot of people will not agree with me. Now, the reason why I still think it is the best movie made up till now, or at least Mortal Kombat movie, is because it stays very true to what Mortal Kombat is. I love those first Mortal Kombat games because they looked extremely spectacular for that time. I mean, yeah, our standards have shifted a lot in the last 30 years, but back then, that was state-of-the-art graphics. On top of that, the combat was brutal, visceral, and it was extremely goofy. You had the finishes, you had Ed Boon popping on the screen occasionally. Later on, you had the friendships, the babalities. It all was just so camp. And that first movie had all of those elements. They took the lore, they expanded on it, but they kept the cringe in, for lack of a better word. All of the more recent iterations I've seen for Mortal Kombat take it way too seriously. It's almost like they're making a Bible movie, or Lord of the Rings or something. Jesus, chill. It is freaking Mortal Kombat. I'd rather have the over-the-top weirdness from the first movie. You know what? I'm going to watch it right after I'm done recording this. Hell yeah. And I'm going to follow up with another favorite on this list. Not because I think the movie is super exceptional, but because that IP that it is based on is my favorite gaming IP ever. Silent Hill. I love those games. Especially the first three. I have so many fond memories of moments, nights, friends, even people that are no longer among us that I used to play those games with. And while those movies do have their faults, they managed to grab that same atmosphere and that kind of vibe and translate it into something that I can recognize as Silent Hill. As that experience I had over all those years. Those movies will forever be in my top tier list of game adaptations, no matter what comes next. Now, the last movie on this list is a bit of a special one. Special in the sense that, one, I have not played the game that it's based on, and two, I haven't seen the movie. But I'm very much aware of it because it is listed as one of the best game adaptations ever made. The chances are, however, that you never heard about it. Werewolves Within. It is a Ubisoft game made in VR. Okay. And it is set in a medieval village, and you basically are tasked by finding out who in your fellowship of your friends and yourself is the werewolf. It is a very known system for games. It is an indie game that did rather well considering it's VR. But somehow they made a movie about it, a successful movie. It was released in 2021 and it is literally at the top, at least in top 3 of every single list I've found of game adaptation. On RottenTomatoes.com it's actually number 1. I checked the trailer and it looks very promising. It looks funny and somewhat scary, kinda depends on what you're used to. And the cast includes Harvey Guillén. Yeah, I'm mispronouncing that again. But he played in Guillermo in one of my favorite series ever, What We Do in the Shadows.
Master, this is pretty macabre.
So I guess we all need to check that one. Who's getting the popcorn? Not me! Gotcha. Alright, let's go. But anyways, what is your favorite game adaptation movie? Not series. Let me know in the comments. But however, that was it. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. It always helps me out. I also want to thank our members. You guys help us out making these videos. You too can become part of the Geek and Plunder family by becoming a member right here on YouTube. If you have a few minutes left, maybe check out one of our other videos. But above all, make sure to subscribe because we'll be back with a new video next week. Till then, take care of yourself, take care of each other. Bye bye.